Hello, preachers. So today I'm here with Father Casey Cole. And Father Casey is a Franciscan friar and a priest. He's an author, a longtime blogger, and social media presence. He has a master's from Catholic University. And for the past year, he and two other friars have been in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they've been engaged in street evangelization and also engaging in ministering to young people where they find them. So welcome, Father Casey.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. So we have several preachers who are interested in either increasing their online presence or beginning evangelizing on social media. So I'd be interested in, how did you begin?
Yeah, I began with a blog many years ago. So it was right before I entered the friars, and I had a lot of people who were interested in what a friar life was like. And so I did not want to write 50 emails a week catching people up. So I thought that was an easy way just to post. And I did that 2 or 3 times a week. After about 3 or 4 years, I tried a vlog and then posting some of my reflections in video form. And believe it or not, people were much more willing to watch a video than read an article. And so from there, I was kind of off wherever the next medium was. I was trying to reach people where they were. So that meant shorter form, that meant pictures. So Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, things like that. And so wherever the next thing will be, I hope to be there as well, meeting people where they are.
Well, I first encountered your blog when I was teaching a course on the digital church. And I gave an assignment for my students to go out and find some Catholic resources that you have not seen before, and let's talk about how they might be helpful. And 4 of my students, and including me, because I always do the homework I assign my students, discovered your blog. And one of the things we loved about it was how willing you were to engage. And, so I'd be curious, how do you handle hostile comments? How do you handle negativity? I've heard people say, oh, I tried that and I got so discouraged. So how do you handle the gamut of comments that you get?
Yeah, there are a couple different approaches. One is just to ignore them.
Yeah.
And I think that sounds dismissive, but sometimes that is what we need to do. St. Francis said 800 years ago, what a person is before God's, that they are, and nothing more. Mm-hmm. And so reminding ourselves that negative comments and positive comments are not necessarily who we are. And so they're not always good feedback. And particularly in YouTube or Instagram or TikTok comments, they're not our best way of knowing who we are.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the dialogue is not great there. And so I do think it's important to have feedback from people we trust, show those things to trusted individuals, have a support team. I think that's great. But sometimes it is helpful just to say, I'm not even going to look at the comments because that's not what's for me. Right. The other side of it is, I think, what's something that Pope Paul VI said, which is that the modern person does not need teachers, it needs witnesses. Yes. And so I think sometimes we approach all forms of evangelization with a sense of, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm the teacher, you're the listener. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes there's a sense of just being that witness of the person who is showing what it means to be a Christian. So in the comments, maybe not trying to correct everyone all the time or always trying to defend yourself, right, but can you show yourself as someone who's listening, someone who's interested, someone who is trying to care for other people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are people out there who have been hurt by churches and by people who profess to be, Christians. And so sometimes I think, people have a right to feel hurt and to express that hurt. And maybe what we can do is simply listen and allow them, that opportunity to say what they need to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think remembering that not only will people be reading their own comments and your response, but other people will be reading how you respond to other people. And so I think that's a secondary way of evangelizing, is recognizing that it's not just a one-on-one communication. Anytime you comment, anyone can read it. It's another opportunity either to alienate people, push people away, or to be that reconciling force to say, here's how I handle anger. Here's how I handle frustration. I'm going to respond with love.
I think that's great. Is it important to have a clear focus of who you're trying to reach? I mean, we can't be all things to all people. Is it important to kind of figure out who am I trying to target?
100%. Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that While St. Paul may have been all things to all people, I am not all things to all people, and the world is so much wider than it ever has been.
Mm-hmm.
I can reach people from countries all around the world in different languages
Right.
through different translation things. I can literally speak to people that don't even speak English. And so that is really powerful and really beautiful, but there are things that just don't translate. And so maybe a sense of humor, or maybe certain situations, or certain feedback, or certain advice. And so if we try to do all things for all people, I think we end up watering it down. There is a fear sometimes where we might upset certain people, or we might not be able to speak to certain people as perfectly as we can. I think remembering what is your focus and write that down. Who are the people I'm trying to reach and why?
And
Can be
why?
really helpful to say when those negative comments come back, or the views don't mount up as you'd hope, to say it's not about the views, it's about the particular people I'm reaching. Am I reaching them? That's the only measure of
That's the
success.
only measure. And that leads me to another, I think, really important question. What can I reasonably expect if I begin an online presence and I have it in my heart that I want to reach people on social media? Realistically, how do we know if we've made a difference? How do we know if we're, quote, successful?
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways of looking at this, and the kind of cop out answer is I don't know, and I don't know if anyone does. I think
Right.
that's not just an internet's too big for us question. That's we don't always know the effect that we have. And
Mm-hmm.
I go to the prayer from in honor of Oscar Romero, prophets of a future not our own. That sometimes we're called to plant the seed, sometimes we're called to till the soil, sometimes we're called to reap the harvest that other people planted. And so, on the one hand, I think it is to set our expectations low, not to say that we won't have an impact, but to say that maybe our impact won't be tangible and maybe it won't be something we'll witness. That said, and that's the spiritual answer, the more practical answer is I do think that views are helpful, but they're often a vanity stat. Subscribers are completely unhelpful. That is truly a vanity stat. I would look at percentage of the video watched, and I would look at how many times it's been shared. Those are the things that have an impact. Even comments are not necessarily all that helpful, either in spreading the video or in terms of reaching people. But are you getting people to watch the whole video? Are you getting them to want to share it with someone else? That means you've had some sort of an impact.
I think that's really helpful. To be honest, that is a new insight to me. So I think that is very, very helpful. I think that's very helpful. Um, what has been your best experience of online evangelization? What can you say to encourage people? What has been like given you hope about that ministry?
Yeah, and it's things you don't even see online. So, partially because I don't read all the comments anymore, but partially because a lot of the comments can be negative, or because the internet is so vast. I don't think you get the proper feedback of its impact. And where I find it is when I am in the real world and I encounter people who say, I entered the church in part because of your videos.
Yeah.
There's no greater compliment that you could give. And to see that, yeah, that video that they mentioned only had, whatever number of views. It was much lower than I had hoped, but that person entered the church because of it.
Yeah.
And so to focus on what impact is this having in the real world, and when you encounter people, try to get real feedback. So it's great when people say, "Oh, I'm a fan of your work." Great, I'm happy.
Right.
But why? And what videos impacted you the most? And what would you like to see? To have that real human feedback can be really helpful.
That is wonderful to hear. What is one piece of parting advice that you can give to people who really have a heart for reaching out on social media? What is your best advice?
Yeah, get in the mind of your viewer.
Okay.
Who are you actually trying to reach? And so maybe that is just to reach fellow Christians, fellow Catholics who already have and you want to give more.
Mm-hmm.
Great, then that's what your mission is. But if you're trying to evangelize, you're trying to reach people beyond, then you really need to learn to speak their language. And that means quite literally the words we say and the storytelling, but I think understanding the heart of the world. What are people worried about? What are they thinking about? What are they struggling with? And how can you speak to them in a way that they will understand, not getting caught up in our usual jargon, get our usual stories, speaking to people who already know. Get in their minds and hearts and you'll speak effectively.
Well, thank you very much, Father Casey. I really appreciate it, and I know our students will too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.